India and the EU share close relationship, and this is a relationship that has grown leaps and bounds. With me is the new ambassador of the European Union to talk about this relationship. Welcome to WION. It's a pleasure to speak to you. And my first question to you is an obvious question, a question which everyone would like to hear the answer of as well. How do you see your posting here? How do you see your mandate here? What will be the focus area for you as the European Union's ambassador to Delhi?
Thank you. Thank you, Sidhant, for having me in your program. I see my tenure as coming at a very important moment in which the EU-India relationship has grown stronger, and it goes ever stronger. It's an ascending trajectory, and my main purpose is really to make sure that this growth trajectory in our relationship is maintained, is sustained, and we explore all aspects of our strategic partnership. And if you look where we were 2-3 years ago, or all the ground we covered in the past years, past weeks, even the past day, yesterday, there was a joint naval exercise in the Gulf of Guinea. There is not a week in which there is nothing happening in our partnership. And there is yet so much to explore, so much to develop. So I think my role is really to make sure that we continue on this ascending trajectory.
Any key breakthroughs you are expecting? Because one of the key event or development that has happened is the formation of the Trade and Technology Council. If you can elaborate on the role of this council and any expected thing that is going to happen in this relationship as well?
So it's true that the Trade and Technology Council, so the TTC, that is named. The fact that we have one with India is proof of the importance we place in our relationship with India, because there is only one other country with which we have a TTC, is the US. And the role of the TTC is really to create a favorable environment for our growth and trade and technological relationship. So you got 3 working groups, some focusing more on technology, AI, high computing, others focusing on research, innovation, and a third which is more focused on trade and market issues. So there was a first meeting, a ministerial meeting of the TTC back in May, and I understand that now we are looking at having a second ministerial meeting in the coming weeks. But in the meantime, in each working group, workshops, and those people working behind to make sure that we were able to identify how we can basically create an enabling environment. And I think this is what this TTC is about. It's about to create a sort of matchmaking in between the business ecosystem, the trade ecosystem, the technology and innovation ecosystem in India, and the European one. And at the same time address all sorts of possible obstacles that could come in the way of developing our cooperation in all these areas. So that is what we see. There have been a lot of discussion and progress made on semiconductors, and with the objective of coming to a memorandum of understanding. It's on a good way. We are developing also discussions around the ecosystem for electric vehicle batteries. We are looking at ways to favor coordination of our work on AI. We want an AI which is human-centric. So we're comparing notes. So all this somehow paves the way for the trajectory also of our future trade and economic relationship, and it's going quite okay for the time being. I think there is good progress made.
So you mentioned the second ministerial. Is it the TTC Council meeting again here in India?
Basically, there is a commitment on both sides to meet at ministerial level, and I think this is what is now being discussed between both parties. The where and when I cannot develop on that, but I think the commitment is there, which is again a proof that they feel that there is a momentum there, and they want to take stock and breathe further momentum into that TTC.
Mm-hmm. And so, what about the India-EU summit? I believe India is going to host the summit. Any plans on that as well, sir?
The same, that yes, it's true that the summit is to take place in India this time around, and the two leaderships are in contact to find the best possible date for that. So we are hopeful that this will come in the coming weeks or coming months, but certainly it is to take place, and we are looking forward to it because there is so much that we want to take stock of at this summit, but also to continue to give the direction to the different segments of our partnerships for the years to come. I think there is a strong support on both sides for this relationship, and the summit is precisely the moment where we can make the harvest of all what we have developed, but also pave the way for the next steps.
One question perhaps everyone might be asking you, and we will of course ask as well, what is happening at the FTA front? Is there any deadline? What kind of negotiations are? If you can talk about the progress as well, when can we see this FTA being concluded?
I'm often asked this question, to be clear, and I realize it's of importance to India as much as it is of importance to the EU. And people sometimes maybe lose sight of the tall order this FTA represents, because both for India and for Europe is quite a unique FTA by its scope, by its size. So we want to develop a state-of-the-art and very modern, comprehensive FTA. That's the way we approach, and we think it's the kind of FTA that we need to develop with India, because for what India is. We are not negotiating with a smaller economy. So for that reason, if you look at the last year, there's been 6 rounds of negotiation, the last one concluding basically these days. There's been good momentum, good progress as well made in this. The two negotiating teams have sort of mapped out in every domain and in every chapter where their position is. And inevitably, in the initial phase of a negotiation, or even you have to adjust. You compare and you see that you are not necessarily seeing eye to eye on everything, which is normal. So now both sides, and following the guidance of on the EU side of European Vice President Dombrovskis and Minister Goyal, as I understand on the Indian side, they are going back to reassess where their red lines are, but where the space for compromise is. And I think we are at this stage, and I think in the coming weeks, based on the stock taking and having mapped out, I think there will be the moment where they will see where we can actually define a package where basically the balance of compromise and adjustment comes to the satisfaction of both sides. So now for your question on the timing, I don't think on the EU side we are necessarily obsessed with timing. It's another way of saying what matters is the quality of the negotiation. So if we feel that India wants to accelerate, is ready to accelerate, we will accelerate. If there is a moment where India wants to consult and reassess and maybe tell us that we need a little bit more time, fair enough. The point is, we are committed. We are behind, and we will do all the necessary to make this FTA negotiation come to a positive conclusion. Saying this, I don't want to hide the fact that it is a substantial one, so there are difficult issues to be addressed, but it's normal. It's normal for such a negotiation.
Mm-hmm. Commitment is something that is a buzzword in the relationship, and one area is the climate aspect. What kind of cooperation are you looking at when it comes to the climate issue? This is something, a top priority for the EU, but also for India.
Yeah. First, in our bilateral relations, we have a clean energy and climate partnership, which has really developed over the past years. We have 50 areas of action in many domains, and we are sharing all our experience and initiatives to build around those both here in India but also globally a strong agenda. So first, what we see is that India has made an incredible performance in the reduction of its CO2 emissions. In the last 15 years, it has reduced by a third, which is incredible. And now every year it's a -3% of CO2 emissions, which is a very fast tracking. So we want to accompany India on that journey of becoming a green and low carbon or zero emission economy. So India has set itself targets by 2070. The EU has put its own target at 2050, zero neutral carbon emission economy. So of course, we would like to accelerate, so that's the reason why we have this Global Energy Targets project on the EU, and we want also our partners around the world, and this is in the context also of the COP28, to rally around that. That is the doubling of energy efficiency, the tripling of renewable energy capacity, and we engage and we discuss this with India, because as much as India has made incredible progress, we think that there is a huge potential here also to even leapfrogging in terms of going green in terms of energy. And when I look at all the sort of ecosystem around energy and green economy in India, it's impressive the way it's advancing.
Mm-hmm. So from climate to conflicts, and I know that while you are EU's ambassador to India, this is something that we all are concerned about, the ongoing situation in West Asia. So a simple question, what is EU's policy on the situation in West Asia? We saw the terror attack in Israel and now a very deteriorating situation in Gaza as well. So if you can elaborate about the EU stance, especially when it comes to the calls of ceasefire.
Yeah, so actually it's a very timely question, because there was a European Council, all the EU heads of state and government met, and there was the conclusions of that meeting that really reiterated the EU position that we stood in solidarity with Israel when it comes to its security and its right to exist in a peaceful environment, and a strong condemnation of the terrorist attacks by Hamas. But we also restated our long-standing policy for the two-state solution in general, and in the short run, the absolute priority and a call for humanitarian pause and humanitarian corridors. International humanitarian law must be abided by, and no one stands above IHL, and that is, I think, a powerful message. There is no place for civilians bearing the brunt of suffering and become the collateral of the conflict. So that Israel wants to fight the Hamas threat, I think it's a legitimate aspiration and action that they want to take, but protecting the people, this is something which is absolutely key. And in the international humanitarian law, there are the principle of distinction between armed forces and civilian, the principle of proportionality, the principle of distinction, proportionality, and protection. So all these international principles must be ensured in the Strip of Gaza.
Mm-hmm. On the ceasefire aspect, what's the policy like? I mean, have you called for ceasefire, or what's the situation?
The EU has called for a humanitarian pause and humanitarian corridors at this juncture. And when it comes to the conflict, the EU has not come to the position of a ceasefire, but it is working intensively with all parties in the region to precisely go into that direction.
Mm-hmm. So talking about connectivity, and we know that there was a big bang announcement here in Delhi during the sidelines of the G20 summit of the India, Middle East, Europe connectivity corridor. Now, my question to you is, do you think that the ongoing development in West Asia poses a challenge towards this connectivity corridor? Does it impact the formation of this corridor, which is still in conversation with many of the countries who would like to be part of it?
I think that the first point is that this project is a transformational one for the region. And when I say the region, I'm talking about West Asia, but I'm also talking about Europe. The tragic developments that we are seeing now actually, I would say, vindicate the necessity to provide stabilizers for this region. And I think at the core, the IMEC project is about that, to develop infrastructures that are conveyor belt of growth, of economic prosperity, not only for India, but also for West Asia, but also Europe. When you create an environment that is conducive to economic growth, economic opportunity, you create a form of glue for cooperation and economic cooperation. Of course, you need the political conditions to be ripe for that. At present, they may not be there, but it doesn't mean that we should be distracted or delayed in preparing and laying the foundation of the IMEC. And I think all key stakeholders in the IMEC have had the same message. We will carry on with this project, and there's so much at stake. Mobilizing the private sector, mobilizing the different studies that need to be undertaken because it's massive, whether it's undersea cables, whether it's about sea lanes and nodal hubs for logistics. There is a lot to be done. So we should not consider that because there is a war, it has simply killed this project. I don't think it has. On the contrary, as I said, I think it simply shows the value of such a project.
And are there any hostages as well with Hamas from EU region when it comes to this conflict?
You mean nationals from EU member states?
Yes.
Yeah, they are. And I think there is active diplomacy underway to obtain also the release of those European hostages that are currently in Gaza.
Mm-hmm. So now moving on to another part of the world, that's the Indo Pacific, and the EU has come out with its own policy for the Indo Pacific. Many member states have come out with the policy when it comes to the Indo Pacific. So what is your idea about this region? How does EU plans to increase its own presence in the region, and where does India plays a role?
So on Indo-Pacific, first, the EU has been present in this region for long. If you simply look at the data in terms of our trade or foreign direct investment or even our official development assistance, most of it has been geared toward that region. And for a reason, because that's one of the main hub of growth and economic growth and trade. So we have been there. We have had developed a lot of policies in that region. Our Indo-Pacific strategy simply put that and framed that into a more strategic approach to the region. So in other words, it will enhance our engagement, but we are not started from scratch. On the contrary. Now we are putting the emphasis on several axes. One is clearly building the interconnectivity. So we were just talking about IMEC, but there is a lot of in terms of development of connectivity infrastructures in the region. And I think this ties in perfectly with the aspirations and plans of India as well. The second is security and defense. I think that the reason why this region has been one of the hotspots of international and globalization is because the economic environment was thriving for it. Mm-hmm. And the economy and trade has been also the glue bringing these countries together. What we see now at risk is destabilization and escalation. So the EU's interest here is to prevent escalation, to prevent instability. So while we advocate for economic openness, we want to ensure that the supply chains are secured. We want to ensure that maritime routes are secure. So this is what our engagement is about. So we work with all partners in the regions that adhere to that vision for the region.
Now, coming to your part of the world, which we have already discussed, but essentially there's a conflict happening there as well, the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And what is the current situation? I mean, it's been almost more than 1.5 years. So if you can give to our viewers the assessment on ground, the situation in the aftermath of the invasion.
I mean, first, this, what we've seen with this war of aggression by Russia is simply an imperialist, neocolonialist agenda on the part of Russia that is trumpeting on all international principles and the UN Charter just to invade his neighbor for no reason, and causing immense suffering and destruction in Ukraine, but also causing incredible negative impact on the world. So for all the narrative projected by Russia that Europeans are the source of the problem, this is turning the argument on its head. The reality is, if there is a global food impact, if there is a global energy impact, it's all of Russia's own making. So while we are supporting an independent country to protect itself, we are also trying to address the negative consequences, the fallout of that war caused by Russia. That's the reason why we try to maintain through the Black Sea Grain Initiative that the shipment of grain and export of cereals is not undermined. So through our European support, we have ensured that 2/3 of grain goes to the developing countries which are badly in need. And I think when it comes to the impact on the energy, we simply acted upon the consequences of our dependency on Russian oil and gas. And we have reduced dramatically, and now even almost come to a stop with energy. So it has forced us to diversify our supply chain in terms of energy. When it comes to the global impact of that war, we stand with Ukraine. We want a true and just peace initiative supported by Ukraine to be adhered to by all our partners around the world. And this is not the objective to fight a war for the purpose of it, but simply to restore the independence, the territorial integrity of Ukraine. So that's what the EU agenda is in Ukraine, and also vis-à-vis the partners. And we've engaged all our partners around the world, including India, to make sure that Russia's aggression comes to an end.
Well, thank you so much, sir, for talking about a range of issues, whether it's ties with India, whether it's the ongoing conflict in Europe, West Asia, and of course, what is expected in next few months and years when it comes to this solid relationship between India and the EU. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to WION.
Thank you very much, Sidhant.